hell you want me to do?
I don't have any money. I
Right,
can't stand it. Don't hit me.
It may have started over dinner. Anything. The bed, the kids, TV, anything.
I'm home and boy, now and nobody better cross me because everything's supposed to be all right here.
You had a bad night's sleep. You get up in the morning, too much noise in the house with the kids.
You don't care about me. You don't care what I go through. You don't care about my feelings. You don't have any faith in me. You don't have any confidence in me.
Incident after incident. If we went out together, I would find something to argue about.
If she was quiet, I'd pick on her being quiet, not talking to me. If she was arguing back, I'd pick on that. Well, what are you arguing with me for?
When you feel like arguing, when you feel like fighting, God himself could sit in that chair and you'll find a reason to argue.
Who can turn the world on with her smile? Who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile? Well, it's you, girl, and you should know it. With each glance and every little movement you show it. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can never tell, why don't you take it? You're gonna make it after all. You're gonna make it after all.
We were married for a few years before I hit her the first time. I only hit her once, but I hit her hard, and I remember the emotion was sufficiently charged at that time to know that I was very short of taking her life.
You were close to taking her life
Very
at
close.
that time, you think?
We were in the bathroom. I had smacked her in the face and her nose was bloody. She went to the bathroom and I just told her to shut up. It wasn't that big a thing. It's a bloody nose. I said, shut up, and she wouldn't. I shut her up. I actually held her physically by the mouth and neck until she shut up.
My wife and I first started our heated arguments or our fights, they were usually, where any violence was concerned, under the influence of alcohol. And I would use that as an excuse to myself for the reason that I may have even hit her. Basically, it would always be a push and shove situation, maybe nothing too serious at first, but it escalated. At its worst, there was a point where I punched her in the eye and gave her a black eye and a concussion. I hit her so hard in a fit of rage. And I would say to myself, well, I'm not going to let that happen again. That'll never happen again. And I would apologize to her and promise, say I was sorry. But it came back again.
When you talk about violence and about physical violence, there wasn't any need for that need for some time, because I got the same thing through verbal violence as I've come to know it, and that I told her that if she didn't do it, that I would.
You would what?
That I would do whatever is necessary, including, as probably as I can remember, tell her that I would kill her. That if she didn't do what I said, that I would rather see her dead than ruin our marriage.
S2, go ahead.
S2, will you take a family trouble call at 726 Tremont Street? That's a single-family home. At this time, we have no papers, restraining orders on this party. Quincy Police, 2046 hours.
S2 has it. Ruby ain't up for wrestling because I sure hell ain't. will be going out on Tremont Street.
Each year in this country, 2 million women are reported battered. That's 1 woman every 18 seconds. But these are only the reported incidents. The actual number is much greater. And it isn't a problem only for minority or low-income women. It happens to women everywhere, in all kinds of living situations. One of the real difficulties in determining the extent of woman abuse is that few will talk about it. It's a secret problem, a domestic problem, not to be discussed outside the family.
And do you know people in violent situations?
Yes, my neighbors. They kill each other. Oh, they do. She came out the other day, she had a bruise about this big. And I said, oh my God, what happened to you? She said, oh, a blood vessel broke. I said, yeah, I mean, I had heard them the night before, you know.
That's a domestic thing. And rather than enlighten on that, I believe it would be better that the individuals that are involved in that would be better to discuss it themselves.
Right, I don't need names, but you do know people who
are in situations like that? Sure, there's a lot of people.
Is your sister being battered?
A little while, once in a while.
What happens?
Well, they get in an argument and he'll cuff her and then walk out.
Are there times you were actually hurt physically?
Yes, I've had my arms twisted. He used to kick me a lot in the shins, where it wouldn't show. He would step on my feet real hard. He was smart enough to know that if he hurt me where it showed, that he would be in big trouble. And you know, there's no sympathy from the state troopers. I live in an area now where we don't have our own police force. And you have to go to the state troopers.
How did they treat you?
They didn't see any black and blue marks on my face. They didn't see my arms broken. They told me to go away somewhere. I said, look, I have been evading this man. I have been running away for 30 years. How long do I have to tolerate this? Well, they told me to go home. There was nothing they could do about it. I would have to actually be hurt, crippled, for them to do anything.
Violence is a male prerogative in this society, and it's a way that we can deal with problems and situations that we don't like. It's a way to solve problems for us, and we learn that in the media. We learn it through our families sometimes and through our peer groups as we're growing up. The norms in our society, the institutions, the agencies, the organizations, don't hold men responsible. They keep asking, what did the woman do to provoke it? And therefore, the implicit message to men is that there's nothing that men do. There's no responsibility that men have. And as long as those norms exist, I think we're going to have violence against women, and particularly domestic violence. The only success, as I saw as a young person growing up, the only success in a relationship I saw was when a man was strong enough to absolutely control his environment. Absolutely control it. And I wanted my marriage to be a success for both of us. And so to me, the success of that marriage meant that along the line, some personal liberties were gone. See, I wouldn't even let her work for many years.
Why would
never
you
let her
work?
drive.
Why wouldn't you let her work or drive?
Well, I felt that a mother's place was in the home. A mother's place was in the home and taking care of the children. Now, you can't do that if you're out working. And we couldn't afford another car. And I also felt, I guess, that I had to contain her, keep her at home.
It took me 3.5 years before I even thought about accepting your going to school, really. I guess I felt you're doing something without my authority, without my saying it's okay. And I continuously done everything to stop you from going to school, outside of tying you to a tree.
One of his things was choking. When it got beyond just the pushing and the head banging, then he would choke me. And that progressed to a point where I thought a couple of times I was really in trouble. I'd say he's very strong, and I couldn't breathe. But I guess the thing that was sticking in my mind is that, if he doesn't stop pressing, he's going to crush my windpipe. Finally, it got pretty bad towards the end of that year. And one night he came home, it was on a Friday night, and he had been drinking. And it hurt. It really hurt. And then when he'd get up in the morning, he was going out to drink again. And I told him, I said, Wayne, I said, don't you know what's going to happen if you go out drinking again? I said, you're still angry. And he went out, and I just knew I could not stay in that house any longer. So I took 2 plastic bags, and I put as much clothes in it as I could, and I took the boys. And I was so afraid that he was going to come back to the house before I got away. So I went to Dunkin' Donuts, and I got a cup of coffee, and I sat in the car. And I told the boys, they wanted to know where we were going. And I said, please try to understand. I says, I don't know right now. I said, I have to get away. I said, I can't be hurt anymore.
I don't know what to, I've hurt her. I've hurt Roz. A lot. I'm sorry. I'd be at a loss for words, boy. I love her very much. The only person to show me love, you know, in my life, I just forced her out of the house.
Men have come to us because they're in crisis. And usually the crisis is a result of their partner, the woman, leaving or threatening to leave. Well over 50% of the men that come here come because their wives or partners have left and gone to shelters for battered women. And once the woman is gone, they realize that they have a problem, and they realize that they want to do something about it. And they come to us. We're looking for a time when it won't be necessary for women to take the responsibility to leave before men will seek help for their violence. But we don't see that happening in the immediate future.
If it hadn't been for a restraining order on me, I wouldn't have stayed away. I would have still tried to go back and make it work.
So how did the restraining order happen? Did the judge put a restraining order on you?
Well, she asked for a restraining order to keep me away, which was an excellent thing. I think that I was so emotionally dependent on her, or on that, I had grown so emotionally dependent upon that marriage, that situation, that relationship, that I wasn't aware of my own need to be away from there. I was only aware of my need absolutely to be there. I couldn't tolerate it. I knew I had to get something because my life was in a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And then going to counseling, talking with you, it gave me a goal for the future.
So just
however small, just counseling itself. Just the fact that I was seeing somebody that I knew I could talk to, that that there was a beginning and ending to a sentence that was a week long. You get in a group, you're talking about a bunch of people who share your life in their own way. They've been there. They they're paying their own dues. And that when they say you're a certain way, you tend to listen to them. Even though you react, you tend to listen to them.
My hardest part in counseling was just what we're doing right now. Just sitting down, telling the truth, and no bullshit.
As we feel it, not as we think it.
Right, and talking to a man. I wouldn't be sitting looking you in the eye and talking to you. Well, no matter what we were talking about, I wouldn't be able to sit and look at a man and can express my feelings to a man.
I was a very close person, very protective person as to my feelings. Quote, feelings, because I didn't even know what the hell my feelings were.
You know, I didn't feel it was anybody's business. I didn't feel it was anybody's business. My problems were my business.
Yeah.
And nothing I could say that anybody else could relate to, I knew that. Nobody could really relate to me because nobody shared my life.
When you get into a group and you're with a bunch of other men, you find out very readily that you're not unique, and that you may have particular aspects that's in your problem alone. But the general overall thing, there's other men there. One of the hardest things that I found to do was to call my wife by name when I was going to counseling. I would find it very comfortable. My wife this, my wife that.
Honey?
No, when I was talking to the counselor. And it was pointed out to me that call her by name. So I would, but I'd have to force myself, and then I would forget and come back. Finally, I realized, after it being pointed out a number of times, why was it so hard for me to call her by name? By name, she's a person. My wife, she's a possession. And a lot of the things that came about was because I was blind to that. And I felt challenged when she would or she wouldn't do something that was only within her own right as my partner, as my equal in this relationship.
Many times, I'd come home in a bad mood or whatever, and we'd start talking. I'd run out of words. I couldn't compete with her. I felt I wasn't smart enough to talk with her, and the only way I could control it was to force her, pushing, yelling, slap, whatever it might have been. And what I do now is leave. And I mean, I just don't up and slam the door and
You
walk out.
recognize your feelings before they get to the point of doing something with you.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
She may say to me, listen, I don't know what's going on here. You're getting really angry. And I'll hear her. And I'll pay attention now. Whereas before, I never would.
The potential for hitting someone does exist. And my endeavor is to see that doesn't happen by...
You're always aware of it.
Being aware of it. Just being aware of it. Say it's there.
I feel confident that I can probably control and have it never happen again, but I don't want to forget.
Right. That was a big part of my life. It was a big part of my whole life. And I don't ever want to forget. But I don't ever want to lose control again. I don't feel I will. I don't feel I will.